A very good morning to you. Welcome on the news review segment. My director this morning, Loretta, just said something that put that smile on my face. Something I can't share with you, but something interesting all the same, to do with my green-colored jacket this morning. And it just struck me this morning as I was thinking through a number of things. Yesterday, of course, we launched our election HQ, election headquarters. All the tidbits you need to know as far as elections are concerned. You need to be right here on this network, this channel, Joy News. And after that and other things I did yesterday, I was absolutely beat, knackered. And I woke up this morning and just realizing how tired I was, exhausted. The French would say, épuisé. I dragged myself here, and if tiredness were a person, it would be me this morning. But we thank God for life, we thank God for strength, and we thank God for being here to serve you. Sometimes you have no idea what it takes to be here. But as a colleague of mine will say, Winston Amwa, we chose this profession. So we must stick to the tenets. Well, right before I get to my guest, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, helping us to bring you this segment every weekday. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches. Where can you locate them? Well, here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiaman Zama. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And the start of the news review here, and I present to you financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He is my guest. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben. Your director was right. Yeah, you really look sharp in that suit.
Okay. That's good to know. I wish my pocket were sharper. And inflation is already beginning to inch up a bit again. I'm sure you followed all of those. But it's been a week since our last conversation. I'd like to find out what is on your mind before we get into the papers. There's been the reshuffle of ministers. There have been many other matters in between, some of which I am gearing up to share my thoughts on Friday, blunt thoughts. But for now, I'd like to find out from you, which one of these are you looking forward to talking about?
Ben, I believe that, thank you for having me again. I believe that there's been a litany of public calls on the president to reshuffle his government for quite some time now. Reshuffles of public or government appointees is usually a good move, but only when the timing is right. But if this was done much earlier, I think it would have been a great move, because we would have had seen most likely the appointees coming in with fresh ideas and new perspective on key issues that matter for the economy. And they would have time to implement these ideas. These ideas, I believe, and perspective that would tackle the current issues we are facing as a nation. Because evidently, some of the current policy ideas haven't quite worked as expected. And in some cases, it has worsened the economic situation for the average Ghanaian. And so, if some of the ideas of those changed or reshuffled out, if these ideas did not work, and yet still they continued in the old ways, doing the same thing yet expecting different results, then it is fair to say that they have not been efficient at post. So, many governments around the world, they use these reshuffles to help improve the effectiveness and the impact of the leader assigned to lead a particular government agency. I believe the goal of these reshuffles ideally is supposed to help recognize and remediate any inefficiencies in the government agencies. And when implemented on a timely basis, the new appointees coming in, they will have ample time to showcase their ideas and competence, in alignment with the mandate of the particular ministry that they have, or being assigned to. Considering the time that this was done, and to when a new administration is expected to come in, whether Dr. Bawumia or former President Mahama, I'm quite skeptical of the impact we'll see from these new appointees. But another key underlying factor for government reshuffles is to improve accountability. While existing appointees are reviewed regarding their accomplishments and any areas of opportunity or improvement that they may have. Yes, you can accomplish this accountability in a reshuffle, but the purpose is not only to reward those appointees who did well and show the door to those with abysmal performance. Their goal should be to also help new appointees to course correct from the direction that their predecessors were headed. And again, timing is of the essence here. So here's my thought quickly on why I think that these reshuffles would have been much better, or have much better impact if the president had done it earlier. I think that it is in the best interest of the nation, the government and these appointees, if reshuffles are done much earlier than we're seeing. I suspect that in many functioning democracies, midterm assessment of the ministers and government appointees is conducted to ascertain performance of these appointees, their effectiveness, and how well their strategies or policies align with the goals of the agencies they lead. The outcome of this should show where the changes are needed, and the reshuffles are done mid-time, not towards the end of the administration. Otherwise, in my opinion, it becomes more of a show, right, a facade, than any serious attempt to improve government efficiency and performance as should be the goal of any reshuffle. Or better still, you could execute these reshuffles at the earlier part of the term, as soon as you notice inefficiency or lackluster performance, which will allow you as the president to reshape the administration to align with the nation's priorities and policy agenda. The fact remains that no president or even a leader in the corporate world can get it 100% correct on the first try in hiring folks to work for them. That is why reshuffles at the mid or early stages of the administration will project confidence to the citizenry that you are serious about leading with efficiency and to implement your visions effectively. Now, there were performance issues about some of the ministers that have been reshuffled out to other areas. That both the NDC and the MPP displayed that rare unity behind the push for the president to fire or reassign some of these ministers. I think that would have been ideal time for a reshuffle for the president to demonstrate that he indeed was listening to Ghanaians.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts. Interestingly, someone who was relieved of one position, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, now has become an advisor. And these, roles of advisors, right? You look at them sometimes and it's just a mechanism of creating jobs for people. Now he's an advisor to the lands minister and all of that. And people are asking, raising questions. But well, per the letter, he has the expertise and they're going to tap into that expertise. And since he's a member of parliament, there's not going to be any additional money or stream of money coming his way, whatever that means. But that's one thing that has been touted. But Mr. President himself, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, said that he did the reshuffle for Ghanaians, not for himself. And some have asked, yesterday when we launched our election HQ, they asked whether Mr. President didn't do it for his party rather than for Ghanaians. But anyway, those are some thoughts on. I don't know whether you have any follow-up thoughts before I get into the papers.
But I think we can only keep our fingers crossed, right? Whatever the goal is, if it is done for Ghanaians, we should be able to reap the benefits within the year. They have just about a year in office. But I think we will keep our fingers crossed to see the impact of this reshuffle.
All right, so we start with the Daily Graphic newspaper, Wisdom. Cleanest Region Ranking campaign launched today. Vote overwhelmingly for Mahama on December 7. NDC tells Ghanaians. NPP names National Campaign Committee's push to exceed revenue target. New Finance Minister urges GRA. It's interesting how with every passing finance minister, once they take over, they start with all of these, there is this excitement and do this and do that. I'm sure they quickly learn that the system is what it is, and not that he wouldn't know, he should know by now. Casa Preco raises 600 million Ghana cedis through stock exchange. On the back page, release of 150 million Ghana cedis for potholes patching inadequate. That's according to contractors. Recently, it's been spoken about. Speed up investigation into Drapa Dubai CEO's death, residents demand. And that's a dastardly act that was committed, snuffing out the life of this industrious son of the soil. Sometimes people say, Yayempe Adepa, because here is someone, Drapa, not so much going on economically and all of that. He sets up this place, and the member of parliament for that area, Cletus, was in the studio with me last week, and he mentioned that he had even set up this water producing, factory, bottled water and all of that, which was just about a week or two from being launched and everything, that he was targeting not just Ghana, but the sub-region. And this unfortunately has happened. But let me start from the back page. That story by Emmanuel Bonny. The Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry has called on the Ministry of Roads and Highways to release a minimum of 2 billion Ghana cedis to pay road contractors for work done. Now look at the difference. 150 million versus 2 billion Ghana cedis. That is, it means they are getting less than 10%. 200 million would have been 10%. They are getting less than 10%. It said, though the release of 150 million Ghana cedis for the engagement and payment to road contractors undertaking pothole patching across the country was in the right direction, the amount was a far cry from the 15 billion Ghana cedis owed its members. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, Emmanuel Cherry, told the Daily Graphic when reached for his comments, that the release of 150 million Ghana cedis by the government was woefully inadequate to address the pothole situation in Accra, let alone the entire country. Quoting him, he says, "Inasmuch as we commend the government for releasing such an amount, we are pleading that the money should be increased in view of the nature of work." And if you look at that portion, if we zoomed in, you don't even need to zoom in. I'm sure on your screen you can see just how bad some of those patches of road are. Thankfully, sometimes when we speak, they listen. The Kolebu stretch, when I spoke about it, next thing we knew, they had actually gone there. And that's, we seem to be professionals in that, especially in election years. We'll go and be doing patchwork. Instead of ensuring that roads are done, we'll go and do patchwork. Of course, it may not even last up to the election or right after. Then you go back to situation normal. I've seen that in certain places, some parts of Jowlu, some parts of East Legon, some parts of Airport Res. I don't know. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Then I think let's ask the obvious question here. It seems to me that suddenly there are a handful of projects being funded by the government. Why now? Are these projects being done as political capital for the election, or these are being executed in good faith to develop the nation and build economic prosperity? We might speculate that according to previous trends, a handful of these election year projects are executed for political gain. Oftentimes we've seen politicians start new projects, or they give more support to ongoing projects in an election year, hoping to use these projects to showcase their achievements and demonstrate their commitment to addressing the needs and aspirations of the electorate. Yes, the nation needs some of these projects, but sometimes politicians hope that these projects will provide them with a tangible accomplishment or progress that they can highlight during election campaigns, which is why we are here today as a nation, because these projects cost a lot of money, and oftentimes they are not completed. And these are monies we could use to provide good health care for our people, right, or build additional hostels for our students in the university and so on. Right. Like I said, it's a great thing if these projects are used for or are done for positive impact with the right intention for the betterment of the nation, not to appeal to voters. New projects, especially those focused on infrastructure development or public services, this can have positive impact on the lives of citizens. So by initiating such projects in an election year, I think the administration will aim to appeal to voters to create a favorable impression. And I think they will hope that these voters will associate these projects with the party in power to enhance their electoral fortunes. It shouldn't be so, Ben.
Well, it definitely shouldn't be, but it turns out to be the norm rather than the exception. Let's look at that story where the finance minister is urging the GRA to push to exceed revenue targets. Now, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, it feels almost odd mentioning a Minister of Finance, and you're not hearing Ken Ofori-Atta, it's rather Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. It's not to take away anything from Amin Adam, but Ken has been around our necks for so long that sometimes it's so difficult to even imagine it. It was almost as though there were no one else who could do the job apart from Ken. Well, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, has urged the Ghana Revenue Authority to develop a structured roadmap for the efficient implementation of tax measures in the 2024 budget. He also emphasized the need for coordination and clear roles to exceed the 2024 revenue target of 146 billion Ghana cedis. He gave the charge in Accra yesterday as the newly appointed finance minister when he led a delegation from the ministry to engage the management of the GRA to discuss collaborative efforts to boost domestic revenue mobilization. Well, my take, simple. We talk about this, without the right systems, we'll not get there. Are we taxing people vertically or horizontally? We know what the answer to that question is. We can either broaden it horizontally or keep taxing a single group of people over and over vertically. It's our own choice. I don't think this bit about push to exceed revenue target and all of that, if we had the systems in place, we wouldn't need anything about push to exceed because the systems would work. And so when I see comments like this, in a way, I find it comical. I find it laughable because we've been saying the same thing since the inception of the Fourth Republic. Why are we still, telling this story? But let me bring in the bit about the MPP and the NDC, and then we can move. So, NPP names national campaign committees. The New Patriotic Party has announced a tall list of persons to serve on various national campaign committees to prosecute its 2024 electoral campaign. The National Campaign Coordinating Committee, which will oversee the work of all other committees, is chaired by the 2024 flag bearer of the NPP himself, that is Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia. He will be assisted by the yet-to-be-announced running mate and include members such as the MPP chairman. The General Secretary of the MPP announced the list at a press conference in Accra yesterday. So it's quite a number of them who are joining. In terms of the Campaign Advisory Committee, you can talk about Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, former President John Agyekum Kufuor, among others, members of the National Council of Elders. In terms of campaign operations, you can look at the likes of Henry Nana Boakye, national organizer, among others, including the immediate past Minister of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, Dan Botwe, who is the campaign chairman. In terms of coordinators and spokespersons, there's a tall list there as well. Then let me do the NDC now. So from the MPP, I go to the NDC. What are they saying? Vote overwhelmingly for Mahama on December 7, NDC tells Ghanaians. So the National Democratic Congress has urged Ghanaians to make it an obligation to vote overwhelmingly for its flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, on December 7 to ensure accountability, which the party said had eluded the country's governance system in the past 7 years. That, it said, was necessary to avoid subjecting the citizenry to further untold hardship following the disturbing revelations at the ongoing proceedings of the Public Accounts Committee. It goes on and on. This was at a press conference dubbed Moment of Truth. And there was a quote in there: the Ghanaian public was taken aback by these disclosures, which add to the never-ending list of corruption scandals that continue to plague the nation. So those quick stories for your reflection, and then we can just look at some international stories and say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper.
Then on the issue about the new finance minister urging GRA to push to exceed their revenue targets, I think we should proceed cautiously to meet and exceed these targets responsibly without overburdening the taxpayer.
Right.
If I recall correctly, it seems that last year GRA exceeded its revenue targets as well. And with the aggressive stance the GRA has taken with revenue mobilization, especially when it comes to taxation, it would have been outrageous if they didn't collect a significant amount, I think, though, that expanding revenue mobilization without raising taxes can be achieved. It is feasible through various strategies. First, we need to continue to expand or enhance on tax compliance, which can help increase revenue without the need for higher taxes. We can achieve this by implementing measures such as simplifying tax processes and strengthening enforcement mechanisms, providing incentives for voluntary tax compliance, and also implementing effective monitoring systems, which I believe can also contribute to higher tax revenues. And then I also think we should continue to expand the tax base by bringing more individuals and businesses who don't pay their fair share of taxes today into the tax net. And this can help the GRA meet and exceed its revenue targets. And this can be done by reducing unnecessary exemptions and loopholes, implementing stricter regulations to prevent tax evasion, and ensuring that all eligible taxpayers fulfill their obligations. This is a better way to mobilize tax revenue without overburdening the people with too many taxes. But a key point I want to make here is that we have to do more to encourage or promote economic growth in order to boost revenue mobilization. When the economy expands, businesses thrive, employment increases, and consumption rises, leading to higher revenues for the state through taxes. So implementing policies that foster investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship, all of these can stimulate economic growth and generate additional revenue without the need for higher taxes.
Right.
The government should also continue to explore alternative sources of revenue beyond taxation. And this can include revenue from state-owned enterprises, royalties from our natural resources, and income from private-public partnerships. I think that diversifying revenue sources can reduce reliance on taxes and create new income streams for the government. And I'm of the opinion that GRA can sustain its revenue mobilization effort without overburdening the people with too many taxes.
Right.
And then if they double down on measures to combat illicit financial flows, such as tax evasion, and money laundering and corruption, this can help preserve revenue that would otherwise be lost. So strengthening anti-corruption measures, improving financial intelligence capabilities, and cooperating with international bodies to combat illicit financial flows, this can contribute to revenue mobilization. A better option than taxation, in my opinion, and definitely can help us with our debt restructuring goals and IMF Extended Credit Facility Program.
Let's quickly go on the international front. Africa's flying presidents under fire. I will do this story. Why? Since Kenya's William Ruto and Nigeria's Bola Tinubu became presidents, they have faced similar criticism over their frequent trips abroad. The two men have been the subject of unflattering descriptions. The costs associated with their alleged penchant for air travel often contrasted with tough economic conditions at home. A Kenyan newspaper, The Standard, nicknamed Mr. Ruto the flying president. It said, so great is his love for flying that it appears that he cannot pass up any opportunity, despite pressing domestic demands such as dealing with the high cost of living. Last month, as Mr. Tinubu made yet another trip to Europe, Nigeria's opposition leader, Atiku Abubakar, said on social media that Nigeria did not need a tourist-in-chief. He criticized the president's private visit while Nigeria was drowning in the ocean of insecurity. On the back of that, some have called for Bola Tinubu's resignation. And I cannot talk about the current Nigerian president and the current Kenyan president without talking about the current Ghanaian president as well, because he's also had that penchant for traveling, sometimes luxuriously in the air. And you ask yourself, I don't get it. You know, you come from, I had to say, Sike Nifie, and so about life. You understand? You don't have money to feed your family, yet you want to be in a three-piece suit or an agbada that is in, and you are looking shepe outside, but inside you don't get fuku, like we need veranda. That's the typical case of African presidents. And the contrast, because these countries they go to, sometimes you would look at the vehicles that the creme de la creme, the presidents and prime ministers and the rest come in from there. And you contrast it with the vehicles we use here. And you ask yourself, are these people really poor? Actually, we're not poor. We have the resources. The president was right when he said, yeti sikaso. But for that sika to trickle down to the ordinary man, that's one, just maybe at the second coming of Jesus. African presidents, I give up. Anyway, on page 9, Pope prays for peace in Sudan and 2 others, and UK nears agreement on cooperation with EU border force. If you have any reflection very quickly before we get into the other papers. We have limited time. Doc?
To be frank with you, as far as the president's travel is concerned, I don't have much comments on that, but it's rather unfortunate. We spend so much money to travel, and we have our future leaders, the students, peoples. I've seen a documentary by Joy News where some of our peoples are studying in classrooms where they don't have demarcations. So all the classrooms are just straight up, right? If one teacher is teaching, the other kids can also hear, even though they are not in that class. And they are in classes where there are cemeteries, there are goats and livestock being raised all around them. And yet still we have money for lavish travel. That is, only God can save us.
All right.
Short comment.
Let me get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper very quickly. And right on the front page, the banner headline, you would see Mr. Digital, or should I say Dr. Digital there, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, at Tap and Go digital platform launch. And of course, everything digital, you know, it's Dr. Baumia. So government procures 100 electric buses to enhance metro mass transit operations. And he has that digital card he's displaying out there. And that has been the thrust of his campaign so far. Digitalization. In fact, digitization. That has been the campaign. General election date change from December 7th to November, not feasible this year. And Dr. Bosman Asari, my former lecturer, my former head of department, and I had a bit of an interaction with him yesterday. He was at our election HQ launch at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's HQ, and he did say this. So he said that, listen, it's not feasible this year to shift from December 7th to November 7th. So it's going to be December 7th. And the other thing he said, indelible ink, there had been a lot of talk about it. He said that the EC felt, since its biometric whatever systems were able to ensure that no one would vote twice, they felt they could do away with it. But they had listened to the Peace Council, CSOs, the media, the generality of the public. And so they will just add it as another layer. And that gave me a lot of relief. You don't want unnecessary tension where none ought to be had. So those are the stories there. NDC will investigate, prosecute $12 million expenditure on botched Ejapa royalties deal. So details of that in there. Quick thoughts before we go?
And it's a good thing to note how the Vice President is championing the expansion of the nation's digital efforts across various sectors.
Right.
The latest being this Tap and Go in the public transport sector. Digitization is the order of the day due to the efficiency and cost to both businesses and customers. And various sectors, including the financial services sector, such as the banks, and now the transportation sector, have largely jumped on this bandwagon for obvious reasons. But we need to see this thing in a different light, right? I think expanding digital service could be a game changer and should involve implementing strategies and initiatives, to increase the adoption and usage of digital applications or services. We need to first consider infrastructure development, ensuring that the necessary infrastructure is in place to support digital platforms. And I'm talking about robust internet connectivity, secure the digital platforms, and reliable payment systems. Hopefully, Tap and Go will work every time and will be secure enough for people to use. We need to continue to collaborate with technology partners and also invest in upgrading digital infrastructure, like I said, to provide that seamless and secure digital experience. There should also be customer education and awareness for folks to better understand and appreciate the benefits and convenience of these efforts to digitize the economy. I think that to see more success, we need to conduct more of this awareness. A lot of the people that are taking these buses, right, not all of them are educated. And so they need some kind of hand-holding. And it's critically important that we also take into consideration the cybersecurity impact. There can never be a reliable digitization without focus on cybersecurity.
All right. The Daily Guide newspaper, SML sues Fourth Estate Manasseh for 10 million Ghana cedis. Let's share global pie, Akufo-Addo says so. But if the global pie were to be shared, would it trickle down? 2024 elections, Bawumia chairs MPP campaign, Nana Kufuor advises. Mahama's 24-hour economy, mere slogan. That's according to Jinapo. You see, I keep saying our politicians keep missing the point. When Akufo-Addo spoke about free SHS and all of that, a lot of people leapt at it, latched onto it, and then he was being teased. And the more people spoke about it, the more fire it actually gathered among the people. I see same happening with the 24-hour economy. And I don't get why people don't realize that the more you try to attack it, just like in the past with free SHS, there are some policies, right? Leave them be. Feed into it. The vice president is also feeding into a 24-hour economy, but moving at it more from the angle of mobile money interoperability and all of that. So if you're denigrating a 24-hour economy, what are you saying about the vice president himself, who is, I don't know what thinking goes into some of these comments. And back then, people said free SHS. Oh, it's a mere slogan. I don't like how it's been executed. Today, children go into, and I'm saying this from what I know, I have seen, not hearsay. People are going to school, some of our young ones, and if you're going to take porridge, you need to bring your own sugar and bread. What is that? What is that? We've had institutions, about 3 of them that I've heard, 1 in the central region, 2 in the greater Accra region, is it, that don't have light on the back of some of all of these issues. So what are you saying? It's a good thing with some bottlenecks. But if you come and say it's a mere slogan, was free SHS a mere slogan? Anyway, EC postpones November elections. That story there on the back of what Dr. Bosman Asari said. And then Otto-Addo set for Black Star's return. Guess what? We hear he just might get the job again. So those stories there, and then I'll do the new finder. After these stories, you give me your reflections and we are gone in 1 minute. Hotels Association surprised at Dr. Awal's exit, and they feel it would have been good to maintain him. Dan Botche leads Dr. Bawumia's campaign. I mean, these stories, the same ones we've already looked at. The graphic business, new finance minister under pressure, calls on him to remove nuisance taxes. But the point is, can he? Dare he, in fact, under an IMF program? Oforiatta's exit won't affect debt treatment talks. Alcohol, tobacco, narcotics drive January inflation. And Kalasem, now acting MD of Cowbank. Final thoughts in a minute, and we have to go.
So, Ben, let me touch quickly on the 24-hour economy item. I think this could be definitely a game changer for Ghana, especially if implemented very well. You know, in a 24-hour economy, various sectors such as retail, hospitality, transportation, healthcare, and entertainment are all available and accessible at any time, catering to the needs and preferences of individuals who require services beyond regular working hours. And this concept, Ben, is recognizing the evolving lifestyle and demands of modern society, where people may have different work schedules or simply prefer to engage in activities during non-traditional hours. Right. So my thought is that this, like I said, it could be a game changer for the nation. However, we need to leverage lessons from other countries and cities where 24-hour economy is being run or developed. New York City, famously known as the city that never sleeps, It's not only a cultural hub and a tourist magnet, but also it is a thriving 24-hour economy.
Right.
And one of the key indicators of the success of New York City's 24-hour economy is the abundance of employment opportunities it creates. According to recent statistics, the city's nighttime economy employs over 300,000 individuals. A report by the Center for Urban Future reveals that New York City's 24-hour economy generates nearly $50 billion in annual wages and contributes about $35 billion in total economic output.
Right.
That fuels the city's financial stability. I could go on and on. In Asia, we see Shanghai, in China.
I mean, there are so many examples. I mean, the Big Apple is a prime example, New York, but you can go to Tokyo, you can go to Sydney in Australia, you can talk about even London itself. There are so many countries that are, and I've done this in my blunt thoughts in the past, so it's clear that it's something that we can do. And you see, people think when you say 24-hour economy, then you're just sticking to, then it's the NDC. No, it can be implemented by any party or any person who becomes president. So it's an idea. It's a conception that we can actualize. It's not about Mahama or Baumia. It's a good idea. That's what we're looking at. It's not about, it's the NDC, so it's a bad idea, or it's the MPP, so it's a bad idea. And that's what I don't get. That's what we don't get. But thank you, Doc, for sharing your thoughts with us. We have to go now. It's always refreshing catching up with you every Tuesday. But right before we get into sports, of course, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment. And they're offering you free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Just reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Krono Mabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Siama and Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. If you're celebrating your birthday today, we love you. We celebrate you. Happy birthday. On that note, let's settle for sports. Up next.